Hi guys, so in today's video, I'm going to be talking to you about the planet Jupiter. So I'm going to be saying this over and over again throughout this series, but I like to think of the planets as a kind of cosmic family that is watching how everything unfolds in our lives from the sky. So each of the planets plays a particular role in this cosmic planetary family that I like to envision. So the reason why I like to think about them as a family is because they work together or they don't. They either get along or they don't. So in order to really conceptualize those planets as that working together or not working together family, I like to personify the planets, and it helps me to find celebrities or very visible people that I can kind of just analyze for hours and hours on end. And I've done that for each of the planets. So for Jupiter, who plays the role of the cool uncle, I have chosen to talk about Joe Rogan because he really exemplifies a lot of Jupiterian qualities, and because he's so prolific, he has like 7 million subscribers on his YouTube for his podcast, The Joe Rogan Experience. And so it's really easy. His podcasts are like 3 hours long. So it's really easy for me to get to know him through his podcast and really pick out the instances where he behaves in such a Jupiterian way. So, okay, first I'm going to give you some information about the planet in general and how it relates to Joe Rogan. I'm going to give you the good and the bad, because every planet, like every person, has positive and negative traits, right? You have to have darkness to balance out the light. So I'm going to do that, and then towards the end of the video I'm going to be giving you just a little tidbit about what that could mean in your particular chart. Okay, so the basic essence of Jupiter does two things. First of all, Jupiter expands everything that it touches. He is expansive and big and is just like a boisterous kind of cool uncle. And Jupiter also wants to bring people together. He's really jolly and he is loving and he wants to have a good time. Okay, so that's what you need to think about when you think about Jupiter. So he's this jolly, expansive character who wants everyone to have a good time and who wants to bring people together. Okay, so Jupiter is similar in role to the sun. So that's why I said he's the cool uncles, because he's a cool uncle because he's similar to the father in that he's warm and loving and also protective. He wants you to be safe. But more than anything, he wants you to expand your mind and he wants you to experience things by really getting out there into the world. Jupiter is a kind of cool uncle that pushes you to explore and teaches you about all the cool things that he's done, but mostly because he wants you to do cool things yourself. He's a type of uncle that kind of lets you do your own thing and kind of dares you and pushes you to really explore the great world, the great big world. He really wants you to, like I said, get out there, explore, expand your mind, and meet other people from different backgrounds, explore different religions, different ways of thinking. So this is kind of the role that Jupiter plays in the zodiac period, right? So Joe Rogan does this through his podcast. So what he does on his podcast, if you're not familiar, is he brings people from all walks of life and from both sides of the aisle and people that are not politically affiliated, even though who isn't these days, right? So he brings all kinds of people, and he also brings people that people don't generally like, people that are disliked generally, and he gives them a platform, not because he necessarily agrees with them, but because he thinks it's important for us to hear information from all sides of things and also from all kinds of people. So I think he does a really fair job of doing that and providing a platform for all kinds of people to come to a show. I highly recommend it. If you don't already watch or listen to his podcast, highly recommend that. If you are a Jupiter person, you're gonna love him. So let me show you. I'm gonna put up his chart here so that you could kind of see what I'm talking about and why he might be such a Jupiter character. Okay, so Joe Rogan is actually a Leo, right? But he is a Sun Jupiter. His Sun and Jupiter are within 2 degrees of each other. And I think this really shines in him because we don't really have his time of birth, so we don't really know where Jupiter is placed. This could be his first house. He could be a rising Leo with Jupiter close to his ascendant. We don't know. But the point is that he displays these characteristics. And let me go into some quotes now. So I really like to use quotes to kind of anchor our understanding of what we're talking about. So to show you kind of the good side of Joe Rogan as this cool Uncle Jupiter, this is what he says. He says, "That's my only goal. Surround myself with funny people and make sure everyone has a good time." That is such a Jupiter thing. That is Jupiter's role in your chart and in your life, is to get you together with other people and to make sure that you have a good time. And he wants you to laugh. Jupiter is a lot about laughing and being very jolly, like I already said. He also kind of reminds me of Santa Claus. I don't know why. Okay. The next quote is, "Live like you're the hero in your own movie." That might be a little bit of Leo talking, but you can also kind of envision Jupiter being this character who wants you to have a larger than life existence and pushes you to have that larger than life existence through the experiences that he puts upon you, right? So whatever area of your chart where he's placed, that's where he's going to give you those larger than life experiences where he wants you to be the hero, okay? The next quote gives us a little taste of Joe Rogan being open-minded and being that character that is into accepting people of different cultures and backgrounds, okay? So he says, "I don't care if you're gay, black, Chinese, straight, that means nothing to me. It's all an illusion." That is his philosophical side. Oh yeah, if I haven't said that before, Jupiter is a very philosophical planet, because that is the whole purpose of exploring the outer world, exploring things that are outside of your daily surroundings. So the House of Sagittarius being the 9th house, even though Sagittarius and Jupiter are not equivalent exactly, they're similar in energies because Jupiter rules Sagittarius. They're not exactly equivalent. Jupiter ends up being a more pure version of the sign. So it's very erroneous to have this idea that Sagittarius equals Jupiter, because it doesn't. So, okay. Like I was saying, the 9th house ends up being the great out there, the great beyond, you meeting the outside world. The 3rd house is your daily surroundings. So that should kind of help you get that idea of what the 9th house represents, and in general, Jupiter, right? So he wants you to expand your mind and really get outside of your daily surroundings and your everyday mentalities that you might have had in your childhood growing up. He wants you to change that. He wants you to experience things that are totally different. And the reason for that is so that you can gain wisdom, because Jupiter is a very wise planet, okay? But unfortunately, this leads me to the bad side of Jupiter. So the bad side of Jupiter is that he can be rather self-righteous. And because he's so philosophical and experienced and cultural and well-traveled, he can kind of be a character that is self-righteous, like I already said. And it can be difficult for him to open his mind and accept views that don't fall in line with things that he has experienced himself. And you could see this in Rogan's podcast whenever he has somebody on the show who is, for example, religious. Sometimes he can get kind of ugly, and sometimes he can be kind of rude if he doesn't agree with the person, and he could be like, "Oh, that's horseshit." It's really ironic that I chose to use him for this astrology channel period, because he hates astrology and he calls it horseshit. But I wish that he were to have a real astrologer on his show to do his chart, and I think it would blow his mind right open, even though he would be very, very against doing that. But I wish he was open-minded enough to let that happen. So, in case I haven't mentioned this, Joe Rogan on his podcast, he talks a lot about different political things. He also talks a lot about drugs, but he talks about drugs not in the sense like to veg out or like in a Neptune sort of way. He talks about drugs, particularly like mushrooms and DMT, as ways of psychedelics, basically. He wants you to expand your mind through exploring drugs. That's why he talks about drugs so much. So like I was saying, he can be kind of closed-minded, and he has a hard time seeing things from people's perspective when he hasn't had that experience. So this is, like I said, he's very anti-religion. He's very spiritual, but he's anti-religion. So this is the quote that I have for that. He says, "Faith itself is a horrible mechanism that stunts the growth of ideas. It also stunts the act of questioning, and it does this by pushing the idea that you have to have faith and that nothing has to be proven." He hates the idea of faith. Like, if you can't prove something to him, that's very Jupiterian. Because Jupiter believes that the things that are true are those things that he has experienced to be true. So experiential knowledge is very important to Sagittarius and Jupiter. So Joe Rogan is like that. So he thinks that you have to prove something for it to be true. That's why he's so against metaphysics in general and things that he can't really experience himself, which I find very ironic because he's all about psychedelics, but whatever. That could be the ugly part of Jupiter. He could be closed-minded and he can have a hard time allowing people to show him the things that he doesn't know because he thinks he knows everything. He can be quite a know-it-all, okay? So now we're gonna go into the part where we're gonna talk about what that means in your chart. So if you have Jupiter in the first house, this is affecting your personality. Jupiter being in the first house means that your personality could be rather big, boisterous, funny. You can be rather philosophical, open-minded. You like to meet people from other cultures and you like to be very cultured yourself if it's happening in your first house. If Jupiter is in your second house, then what he could bestow upon you is very, you can have tastes, because the second house being your house of resources, you can make money abroad, you can have you could also gamble. Like, that could also, well, no, the fifth house would be more gambling, but he can make you a little bit irresponsible with your money because Jupiter could tend to be irresponsible, or he can bless you with a lot of resources. You could go either way. Like I said, there's positives and negatives. It depends how it's aspected and what transits are going by. In the third house, he can have you, that's the house of your lower mind and the way that you communicate. So you might want to be communicating about philosophical things, about cultural things. You might be very interested in learning about different cultures and knowing a lot of facts about different cultures and talking to people from different cultures. In the fourth house, your home itself can be big, right? Because Jupiter expands everything. You could have a lot of siblings when you have Jupiter in the fourth house. If you have Jupiter in the fifth house, that means you're going to be very blessed in the area of self-expression, love affairs, and passion. You could be a very passionate person with a lot of hobbies. Children tend to love you if you have Jupiter in the fifth house. If you have Jupiter in the sixth house, I think that's kind of lucky because the sixth house is the house of illness. They call it the house of health, but in traditional astrology, it's the house of illness actually and servitude. So if you have Jupiter there, he could lighten the load for you in the sixth house. If you have Jupiter in the seventh house, you are going to be attracted to people who can provide that Jupiterian experience of the world. Maybe people with money who could take you around the world to travel and show you new things that you've never experienced before. Either you're attracted to people like that or you like to do things like that with other people. You could play that role or they could play that role for you. If you have Jupiter in the eighth house, you might not be very conscious of Jupiter because the eighth house is so repressed and hidden, but maybe that could give you a little bit of an interesting sex life. Maybe he can give you a lot of resources through marriage because Jupiter is blessings and the eighth house is the house of joint resources. In the ninth house, that would be the house where he belongs. So in the ninth house, he's going to give you a lot of experiences with the outer world. You're going to most likely travel a lot, study a lot, become some type of philosopher expert. In the 10th house, he could give you your reputation could be that of a wise sage. You can be rather philosophical. You could be known for your philosophies. You could be known for your intelligence, for your experience, and for your wisdom. In the 11th house, he's going to give you friends who are very wise, friends who are philosophical, who are exotic. In the 12th house, I think it could be a blessing. It could give you maybe psychic gifts because Jupiter brings gifts wherever he is, and the 12th house can be the 12th house is a very psychological house. It's the house of the psyche, of sleep and dreams. He could give you beautiful dreams and maybe a lot of inner strength that you could reach through getting to know your deeper mind, maybe. So, okay guys, that was Jupiter. I hope that you liked this video and that I wasn't too rambly, and I hope you stay tuned for the other ones. Bye.